Blackridge was the kind of town people forgot. Tucked between dry hills and abandoned rail tracks, it barely existed on maps anymore. The younger generation had already left, chasing better lives in bigger cities. Only the stubborn, and the silent, remained. And beneath it all, something was still burning. No one knew exactly when it started. Some said it was decades ago, back when the coal mines were active. Others believed it began the day the last miners sealed the tunnels and walked away without looking back. But one thing was certain. The fire never went out. It only waited. For years, the signs were small, easy to ignore. Warm patches of ground in the middle of winter. Steam rising from cracks after rainfall. A strange, metallic smell that lingered in the air at night. People noticed, but no one asked questions. Because in Blackridge, asking questions meant digging too deep. And digging too deep was dangerous. Adil had just moved to the town with his family. He hated it instantly. No internet most days, no friends, no noise, just silence, and a strange heaviness in the air that made him feel like he couldn't breathe properly. It's just the weather, his father told him. But Adil wasn't convinced. Because the ground was warm. Not everywhere, but in certain places, it felt like something was heating the earth from below. One afternoon, while wandering alone, Adil found himself near the edge of town. That's where the old mine entrance stood. Or at least, what was left of it. The structure had collapsed years ago, leaving behind nothing but broken wood, rusted metal, and a warning sign that had faded beyond recognition. But something about the place felt wrong. The air shimmered slightly, like heat rising off a road. Adil stepped closer. The soil beneath his shoes felt soft. Too soft. He pressed his foot down. And the ground sank slightly, releasing a thin stream of smoke. He jumped back, heart racing. What the? He looked around. No one was there. Just silence. And that faint, crackling sound. Then he heard it. A low, distant rumble. Not from above, but from below. Adil dropped to his knees, placing his hand on the ground. It was hot, unnaturally hot, and it was vibrating, like something deep underground was shifting, moving, waking up. Suddenly, crack, a thin line split the earth right in front of him. Adil stumbled backward as the crack widened, glowing faintly orange from within. Heat poured out like a breath from something alive. The smell hit him next. Burnt, chemical, suffocating. He should have run. Every instinct told him to. But he couldn't move, because inside the crack, something flickered. Not just fire. Something darker. Something that didn't belong. And then, a sound. A whisper. Faint, but clear. Calling his name. Adil. His blood ran cold. He stepped back slowly, shaking his head. No, no, that's not possible. The voice came again. Closer this time. More desperate. Adil, help us. The ground trembled violently. The crack widened further, and for a brief moment, Adil saw it. Shapes. Moving beneath the fire. Reaching. That's when he ran. He didn't stop until he reached home, slamming the door behind him, gasping for air. His mother rushed toward him, alarmed. What happened? But Adil couldn't answer, because deep down, he knew something terrifying. The fire beneath Blackridge wasn't just fire, and whatever was trapped down there was trying to get out. Adil didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again. Those shapes beneath the fire. Reaching, moving, waiting. By morning, the town felt different. The air was heavier, hotter. Even the silence had changed, like it was hiding something. Adil sat at the breakfast table, staring blankly at his food. His mother noticed. Immediately. You're still shaken. What happened out there yesterday? He hesitated. Should he tell her? Would she even believe him? The ground cracked, he finally said, his voice low. Near the old mine. His father froze mid-sip of tea. For a moment, no one spoke. Then his father slowly put the cup down. You went there? He asked, his tone sharper than usual. Adil nodded. I saw something, inside the ground. And I heard, enough. His father cut him off. That one word carried something heavy. Fear. You're not going back there, his father continued. Do you understand me? But, I said no. Adil stayed quiet, but his mind wasn't, because his father's reaction didn't feel like concern. It felt like recognition. Later that day, Adil went looking for answers. If his parents wouldn't tell him the truth, someone else would. That's how he found Mr. Hanley, the oldest man in Blackridge. The one people avoided. He lived in a small, broken house at the edge of town, surrounded by rusted tools and piles of ash that never seemed to blow away. Adil knocked. No response. He knocked again. Go away, a weak voice called from inside. I just want to ask something, Adil said. About the mine. Silence. Then, the door creaked open. Mr. Hanley's eyes were sunken, but sharp. Too sharp. You shouldn't say that word out loud, he whispered. Adil swallowed. Why? Hanley looked around nervously, then pulled him inside and shut the door quickly. The room smelled like smoke. Because it listens, Hanley said. Adil frowned. What listens? Hanley didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to a dusty shelf and pulled out an old photograph. He handed it to Adil. It showed a group of miners standing in front of the very same tunnel. But something was off. Their faces. They looked afraid. That was taken the day before we sealed it, Hanley said quietly. Adil asked. Hanley nodded. I was there. Adil's heart started racing. What happened? Hanley took a deep breath. For weeks, we kept hitting something strange underground. Not rock, not coal, something hollow. He paused, and then we broke through. The room felt colder, despite the heat outside. What did you find? Adil whispered. Hanley's hands trembled slightly. A chamber, he said. Too perfect to be natural. Walls black as night, and heat, unbearable heat. He looked up at Adil. And sounds. Adil's chest tightened. What kind of sounds? Hanley leaned closer. Voices. Adil's blood ran cold. They weren't ours, Hanley continued. They came from deeper inside. Calling, begging, whispering things we couldn't understand. He shook his head slowly. We should have left right then. But you didn't, Adil said. Hanley's eyes darkened. No, he said. We went deeper. A long silence filled the room. And that's when the fire started. Adil stepped back. Fire. Hanley nodded. It came out of nowhere. No fuel, no spark, just flames. Like the earth itself had caught fire. He swallowed hard. And the voices, they changed. How? Adil asked, barely able to breathe. Hanley's voice dropped to a whisper. They started screaming. Adil felt a chill run through his entire body. We lost men that day, Hanley continued. Not to the fire, but to something else. He stared directly into Adil's eyes. Something in that chamber. Adil's mind raced. What did you do? Hanley let out a slow, tired breath. We sealed it, he said. Buried the entrance. Told everyone it was an accident. He paused. But we didn't stop anything. A deep rumble suddenly echoed outside. Both of them froze. The ground shook. Adil looked toward the window. Smoke was rising in the distance. From the direction of the mine. Hanley whispered, his voice filled with dread. It's waking up again. Adil turned back to him. What is it? Hanley's lips trembled. It's not just fire, he said. It's a door. The rumble didn't stop. It grew stronger. Adil and Mr. Hanley rushed outside. In the distance, toward the old mine, a thick column of black smoke twisted into the sky. The ground around it shimmered, like the air itself was melting. People were gathering in the streets now. Confused. Afraid. What's happening? Someone shouted. Is it an earthquake? But Adil knew better. He could feel it again. That same vibration beneath his feet. Like a heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Alive. We don't have much time, Hanley muttered, grabbing Adil's arm. If it's opening again. Adil looked at him. Opening. You mean the door? Hanley nodded grimly. Before Adil could ask anything else, a loud crack split the air. The ground near the center of town broke apart. Right in front of the old water tower. People screamed as the earth tore open, forming a massive fissure stretching across the road. Flames didn't burst out immediately this time. Instead, dark smoke poured out, thick, heavy, and moving, like it had a mind of its own. Adil watched in horror, because within the smoke, he saw them again, shapes, human-like, twisting, reaching. They're coming closer, he whispered. Hanley's face turned pale. No, this is worse than before. The smoke suddenly lashed outward. Like a living thing, it wrapped around a nearby man before anyone could react. The man screamed, a sound so raw, so full of terror, it silenced the entire street. Help me, but no one could move. No one could even breathe. The smoke tightened, and then, it pulled him down, straight into the crack. The ground sealed partially behind him. His screams cut off instantly. Dead silence. Adil staggered backward, his legs shaking. What was that? Hanley didn't answer, because he was staring at something else. The fissure. It was changing. The edges of the crack were no longer just broken rock. They were shifting, pulsing, almost like flesh, and from deep within, a glow returned, orange, then red, then something darker. Adil felt it again, that heat, but this time, it wasn't just heat, it felt like pressure, like something enormous was pushing from the other side. The seal is breaking, Hanley whispered. Adil's heart pounded. Then we need to close it again. Like you did before. Hanley shook his head slowly. No, last time, we only buried the entrance. He looked back at the growing crack. This time, it's pushing through everywhere. Another rumble shook the town. Stronger, violent, more cracks appeared, across roads, through walls, inside houses. Screams echoed from every direction. Adil covered his ears. This isn't just one place anymore. Hanley nodded, his voice barely audible. It's spreading. Suddenly, Adil froze, because he heard it again. That whisper. Adil. His eyes widened. No. He turned slowly toward the fissure. The voice came again, clearer, closer. Adil, you saw us. The smoke inside the crack shifted, forming a shape, a face, distorted, burning. Help us. Adil's breath stopped, because this time, he recognized it. It was the face of the man who had just been dragged inside. Still alive, still trapped. Please. Adil stepped forward without thinking. Hanley grabbed him instantly. Don't. But he's alive. Adil shouted. We can't just. You don't understand. Hanley yelled back. That's how it gets you. Adil hesitated. What do you mean? Hanley's grip tightened. It uses them, he said, to call the others in. Adil looked back at the fissure. The face was still there. Crying, begging, but something about it felt wrong. Its eyes, they weren't human anymore. They were glowing, and slowly, the face began to smile. Adil's blood turned cold. See, Hanley whispered. It's learning. The ground shook again, harder than before. Adil lost his balance and fell. As his hand hit the ground, he felt something new, a second vibration, different from the first, not below, but deeper, like something far beneath the fire had just moved. Hanley's eyes widened in terror. Oh no, what? Adil asked, panic rising. Hanley stepped back slowly, staring at the burning cracks spreading across the town. That wasn't the door. Adil's heart stopped. Then, what was it? Hanley swallowed. That was something knocking. The knocking didn't sound like a noise. It felt like a signal. Adil pushed himself up from the ground, his hands shaking. All this time, we thought it was trying to get out, he said, his voice unsteady. But what if? Hanley finished the sentence for him. It's trying to get in. The air suddenly grew hotter. Not just warm, burning. Across Blackridge, the cracks widened, stretching like veins beneath the town. Fire began to seep through again, but this time it was different. Darker, heavier, as if the flames themselves carried weight. People were running now, screaming. Cars sped down the streets, some crashing as the ground shifted beneath them. Adil looked around desperately. This is getting worse. We can't just stand here. There has to be a way to stop it. Hanley didn't respond immediately. His eyes were fixed on the fissure, on the fire, on the movement beneath it. There's one way, he said finally. Adil turned to him. What is it? Hanley hesitated, like he wasn't sure if he should say it. We have to close the door from the other side. Adil stared at him. You mean go down there? Hanley nodded slowly. No, Adil said immediately. That's insane. Do you think staying up here is any better? Hanley snapped. You've seen what it's doing. It's spreading, learning, soon it won't need cracks anymore. Another violent tremor shook the ground. This time, buildings began to collapse. Adil stumbled, barely keeping his balance. Even if we go down there, what do we do? Hanley reached into his coat and pulled out something wrapped in old cloth. Carefully, he unfolded it. Inside was a small, blackened object. It looked like a piece of stone, but it pulsed faintly. What is that? Adil asked. Hanley's voice dropped. We found it in the chamber, the day everything went wrong. Adil felt a chill. What does it do? Hanley looked at the growing fire. It's the key. Before Adil could respond, a scream echoed behind them. They turned. A woman was trapped near a collapsing house, her leg pinned under debris as smoke curled around her. The same dark smoke, moving, watching. It's going for her. Adil shouted. Without thinking, he ran. Adil, wait, Hanley yelled, but it was too late. The smoke lashed toward the woman. Fast, hungry. Adil grabbed a broken metal rod from the ground and swung it through the smoke. For a brief moment, it scattered. The woman gasped. Help me, please, I've got you, Adil said, trying to lift the debris. But it was too heavy. The smoke regrouped, this time stronger. It wrapped around Adil's arm. He screamed. The heat was unbearable, not just burning, pulling, like something was trying to drag him through the ground itself. Adil, Hanley shouted, rushing forward. He threw the black stone toward the smoke. The moment it touched, everything changed. A sharp, piercing sound filled the air. The smoke recoiled violently, like it had been burned. It released Adil instantly. The ground trembled again, but this time, it felt different, controlled. The flames around the fissure dimmed slightly. The movement slowed. Adil stared at the stone. What was that? Hanley grabbed it quickly, wrapping it back up. It pushes it back, he said, but only for a moment. Adil helped the woman free, pulling her away just as the ground collapsed where she had been. They both stumbled back, breathing heavily. So that's our only chance? Adil asked. Hanley nodded. We take this down there, he said, holding the wrapped stone tightly. And we finish what we started. Adil looked toward the massive fissure. Fire, smoke, movement, something waiting. Fear gripped him, but so did something else. Determination. If we don't, he said quietly, this town is gone. Hanley gave a grim nod. Not just this town. A deep, echoing boom rumbled from below. Louder than anything before. Both of them froze. Because this time, it didn't feel like knocking. It felt like something had finally found the door. And was starting to open it. Adil swallowed hard. Then we don't have much time. Hanley looked at him. No, he said, we don't. The ground split wider in front of them. Flames rose higher. An opening. A path downward. Into the fire. Adil took a deep breath. Let's end this. They stepped toward the fissure. And without another word, they jumped. Adil couldn't tell if he was screaming or if the sound was being swallowed by the fire around him. Heat rushed past his body, burning the air in his lungs, blinding his vision. Then, impact. He hit the ground hard. But it wasn't rock. It was soft. Adil gasped, forcing himself up. The surface beneath him shifted slightly, like ash layered over something alive. The air here was suffocating, thick with smoke and something far worse. Something ancient. Adil, Hanley's voice echoed nearby. I'm here. Adil coughed. A faint glow pulsed around them, just enough to see. And what Adil saw made his blood run cold. They weren't in a tunnel. They were in a vast chamber. The walls weren't stone. They moved, slowly, breathing. Ya Allah, Adil whispered. Shapes were embedded everywhere. Human shapes, burned into the walls. Some twisted in pain, some frozen mid-scream. They're not dead, Hanley said, his voice trembling. They're part of it now. Adil felt sick. A low, deep sound filled the chamber. Not loud, but powerful. A heartbeat. Thump. The ground beneath them pulsed. Thump. Adil turned slowly. At the center of the chamber, something enormous moved beneath a layer of burning cracks. It wasn't fully visible, but its shape was wrong. Too large, too deep, too alive. That's it, Hanley whispered. That's the door. Adil shook his head. No, that's not a door. Another thump echoed. Louder. Closer. It's what's behind it. The cracks across the surface widened. Light poured out. Not normal fire. Something darker. Something endless. And then, it opened. Not like a door. Like an eye. A massive, burning eye stared up at them from beneath the ground. Adil froze. Because the moment it looked at him, he felt it. Not heat. Not fear. Awareness. It knew him. You came back, a voice echoed. Not from one place. From everywhere. Adil's ears rang. What are you? The chamber trembled. We are what was buried, and what was forgotten. The walls writhed. The trapped shapes moved, reaching. You opened the way. Adil shook his head. No, we're here to close it. The voice shifted, almost amused. You cannot close what has already begun. The ground split further. The eye widened. From within, hands emerged. Not human, not entirely. Reaching toward them, Hanley grabbed Adil's arm. Now, the stone. Adil snapped out of it. He grabbed the black stone from Hanley and ran toward the center. The heat intensified instantly. Every step felt like walking into fire. The voice roared. Stop. The chamber shook violently. The hands lunged forward. Adil screamed, pushing through the pain. I won't let you out. He leapt, and slammed the stone into the center of the burning eye. For a split second, everything went silent. Then, a blinding flash, a scream unlike anything human tore through the chamber. The eye convulsed. The walls cracked. The trapped figures began to fade. Their expressions finally, releasing. Hanley covered his face. It's working. It's actually working. The fire began to collapse inward. The cracks sealed. The movement slowed. The voice weakened, fading. This is not the end. Adil fell to his knees, exhausted. Maybe not, he whispered, but it's enough for now. The chamber collapsed around them. The ground gave way, and everything went black. Ellipsis. Adil woke up to silence. Cold air, no heat, no fire. He was lying on the surface. The town, what was left of it, was quiet, cracked, burned, but no longer alive. He pushed himself up. Hanley. No answer, only ash, and in his hand, the stone, now completely cold. Days later, officials called it a natural disaster. Underground fires, gas pockets, nothing more. Most people left Blackridge. The town was abandoned within weeks. But Adil stayed, because sometimes, late at night, he still felt it, a faint warmth beneath the ground. And once, just once, he heard it again, a distant, slow thump. Adil looked down at the earth and whispered, "It's not over."